Hi, everyone. I hope wherever you are, you're staying safe and you're staying healthy. There's a lot of things that have changed in the world over the past few weeks. And one of the ones that isn't super important, but maybe slightly important to you, is how the College Board has changed their tests for this 2020 year. The tests are going forward, but they're essentially about 45 minutes to write. And for the AP history portions, like AP World, like I teach, or AP US History, or AP Euro, it's just going to be one DBQ. So what I've done is I've created a worksheet to help my students with this that they may or may not decide to use. And I thought other people might like it as well. So let's go through it. So this is a Google Doc that I've created and shared with my students. And if you look at the description below, it's there for you as well if you would like. One of the reasons you might want to use a document, whether it's this or a different one that's on a computer, is that what can happen is if you've got these boxes, they might be too small or too big if you've got them printed out on paper. So one of the great things about using a Word doc or Google Docs is that you can go ahead and the boxes will just move as small or as big as they need to fit the information. Okay. What you'll notice here is right off the top, we're talking about the prompt. So there's a few things that you need to know. Is that you need immediately to know the specific era you're talking about. And this can be like specific years. So you'll write that down. You'll want to know that the players or the region are that are in the prompt, especially in AP World. You might get one group of people interacting in a different region. So you need to have that clear in your head. One of the most crucial or important parts of this table is what are they asking you to do? Are you supposed to make a specific type of argument? Are you supposed to show the extent of a change or a transformation or comparing things? So that would be important to know. And then the last category is the inspect, which is based off of the themes for AP World History. So inspect is interaction with the environment, social, political, economic, cultural, or technological. These are all very important because what will end up happening is if you write a beautiful essay that's absolutely perfect about the political aspects of the Mongols in a particular century in the 1500s, then you won't necessarily get the point if they wanted one that talked about the interaction of the environment or in a different time period or with different regions or so on and so forth. So it's really important that that's super clear off the top. The other thing that's going to be helpful just to help you concentrate is I recommend writing down just 2 or 3 terms for your initial context if they come up. Depending on what the prompt is, there might be a few things that you're like, oh yeah, the context which I need to make sure to include is this and this. You want to be able to write that down somewhere so you aren't constantly, your mind isn't bugging you with that when you're doing other things. The last thing to keep in mind is the essay type. Now, I have been personally told over and over again in trainings that you don't necessarily need to use a specific format or even necessarily one of these thinking skills as long as you answer the prompt. Now, the prompt might be in a way that, yeah, it's got to be a comparison, but in general, they're moving towards having a general historical question, and then you, as the historian, make the determination: what is the most effective way for me to answer that prompt? So if you're going to go for causation, remember a historical event or the person's kind of in the center of it, and you're either talking about the causes or the effects. So it's a little bit more complex than your straightforward cause to effect. If you're going to do a change or continuity over time, a CCOT, using that format, then you need to make sure you talk about the beginning, you talk about the end, and then you're talking about the change or continuities that happen in between. If it's comparison, by the time you're done with your essay, the reader should have a real good idea of what the thing number one was and what the thing number two was, and then also what are the key similarities and differences between those things. So once we do this, this whole portion up here should take you no more than like 30 seconds to a minute. And then we can get into the meat of the thing, which are the documents themselves. So how I like to set up my table is this. On the far left, I like to have the numbers. Second column, I like to have the dates. The dates can be very helpful depending on the type of essay I write. And I like to know what are the interactions between the documents. Is this happening at the same time? Are they in response to each other? Or is one happening at 1 year in the future and the other one is happening like 10, 50, 100, 200 years in the future? All those things are going to help me understand the document and also understand what would be a smart argument to answer. The third column is the most important column. It's how does this particular document answer the prompt, okay? Again, you want to be able to answer that prompt above everything. So you're gonna put just like phrases here. And then the last column, I like to put together outside evidence and the HEOP or the sourcing part. So HEOP is the historical situation, intended audience, author point of view, or purpose. And when I'm actually doing this, when I'm writing a DBQ myself, what I'm doing is I'm just putting like a phrase here, and then this far column, I just will put like an abbreviation for these different parts of the HEOP. So like POV, if that's what I'm going to do. But I don't write down the POV. I save that for my essay itself. I just remind myself, oh yeah, when I get to this document, I'm gonna want to mention the POV as well. When it comes to outside evidence, I personally like to use a star. So what I'll do is I'll just put a star and then one or two words naming the outside evidence. So when I get there, I'll know, hey, I'm talking about document one. Oh yeah, bring up that outside evidence and bring up the POV or the purpose or whatever it is I'm going to do. Just a quick reminder that outside evidence, you need to name, explain, and proclaim how that connects to your argument or thesis, or it's just extra fluff and you won't necessarily get the point for it. Once I've got those documents figured out, it's time to start to group them together is usually the most effective way to do this. With 5 documents, I'd expect you only to have 2 groups. And so what I like to do is I like to name the grouping in like some sort of category or something that kind of name it, so I know what they have in common. And then I like to have the document numbers right below it. Okay. With that, I'm ready to write my thesis. And so my thesis needs to include a few parts. It need to have something to do with the era, something to do with the region. I need to be clear about that. And then I need to mention my argument, my groupings up here. That's how I'm going to answer the prompt. Okay, so I need to do that, make an argument with that one thesis. Okay. And then once I'm done with that, what I would do is I want you to revisit the contextualization. Now that I know, hey, this is exactly what I'm arguing, then what is important for the context? You really shouldn't go more than like 3 different concepts or sentences within that context to make it work. And it needs to connect directly to the prompt and hopefully directly to your argument. But that won't be clear until you write your thesis. On the bottom here, you've got the rubric all laid out for you. So you can get 1 point for the thesis, 1 point for contextualization, 1 point for describing 2 of the documents, 1 point for connecting 2 of those documents directly to your argument. You can get an additional point for connecting 4 documents directly to your argument that you're making. You also can get 1 point for showing outside evidence that links up to your argument. For this year only, you can get a 2nd point for a second piece of outside evidence. You also this year get 1 point if you correctly source one of the documents. And then there's an additional point that's ready if you source a second document. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is that there's only 9 points and you can get 10 for this particular DBQ. So that 10th point is this wonderful animal that I've got throughout the rubric, which is, of course, the unicorn point, the point that's for showing nuance, showing complexity. And so one of the things that I've been taught at different trainings is that if you want to ensure you get that unicorn point, it can't be just a paragraph or 2 at the end. It's got to be something that is throughout, which is why I've got my little unicorns galloping throughout my rubric. Now, how do I get that unicorn point for my overachievers? Well, there's several ways to do that. One of which is using like a complex thesis and using it throughout. So if I've got a counter argument running throughout my essay, then I might get the unicorn point. I might, again, you've got to be really focused. So you might be asked to do talk about the economics, but you've got to do that. But if in addition to that, throughout you are weaving through the social or political changes that are happening, then you might get the point. From what I understand as well, you might be able to do so as well with the era. You got to focus on exactly what you're talking about. But if you're continuing to link that throughout, you could get the point. And then depending on how the prompt is written, there could be a possibility it might be asking about effects. So if you're weaving the causes throughout, that could be it. Same thing, the opposite skill basically for comparison or CCOT. What I teach my particular students is that do not worry about the unicorn point. Now, if a flash of inspiration, if a lightning bolt hits you and you're like, oh, yeah, I totally got it, then sure, from the very beginning, go ahead and weave that in. But it's only 45 minutes. It's a new test. So I would much rather you concentrate on nailing these 9 points than going for the 10th. And to be honest, between you and me, if you do a good job with those 9 points, chances are you could earn the 10th point just for how complex and nuanced your essay is by itself. So So feel free to use this if you'd like. If you'd prefer to use a PDF or something you print out, one of the things that I would recommend is from Heimler's History. He's got a great YouTube page, especially when it comes to teaching the skills, especially DBQ. So you might want to go over to his site. I'll put that in the description as well. You might want to print that out. But whatever it is that you decide to use, you need to practice. You need to practice. You need to whatever process you're going to go through has to just be ingrained that you can just focus and just spend your time writing on that for in that 45 minutes. This whole process in total that I'm showing you shouldn't take more than like 10 minutes or maybe 15. And you need to make sure that you save some time for you to actually write your essay itself. Also, please don't turn in this worksheet, no matter how beautiful it is. They want you to write an essay, make sure you do that. The other thing that I like to mention is that College Board, I'm very happy they're doing this. College Board is going to have kind of a mock exam, but not really. From what I understand, the College Board will be at the end of April or near the end of April, will be having a time where you will be able to go in and practicing accessing the test and submitting something for the test. All that is crucial because, again, the day of the test, you do not want to be learning how to upload your document. You don't want to be learning your process as you're trying to do this in 45 minutes. I know all of you are in different situations. So some of you are going to be able to have two screens, some will have one laptop, some will be using your phone. However it is that you decide to do it, just make sure you're practice. So it's not the process that you have to worry about. You can just focus on that prompt. So whatever your situation or wherever you're at, I want to wish you well, and I wish you good luck on this AP exam. That's going to be a bit unique compared to the other years. I especially want to say hi to my AP World History kids at Olympian High School, as well as all my former students who either transferred or took me for AP Human Geography. I wish you luck. And everybody who's seeing this, I want you to know you're brilliant, you're resilient, okay? As long as you do the best as you possibly can on this prompt, then you'll always be a 5 to me. All right? I'll catch you guys later. Good luck. Study.